Hello guys, today I show you this video that is a work I did tattoo on a customer of mine. This represents my first tattoo giveaway I did last December 2017. It's a Hannya mask that I have previously drawn, and then when I showed to the customer, he was really happy about it and he decided to get this tattoo. In this video you could see briefly the way I work, the elements I consider while working, like the choice of the color, and during the process the line I use and the areas I start from, and also the technique I use to color this tattoo. When I paint and draw or tattoo, I am right-handed, and for this reason I prefer work from right below and move across to left, just to make sure I won't smear the stencil. But there are many artists that start from top to bottom, so it depends on you and depends how you prefer to work. Speaking about the style of the subject, I can say that it could be a sort of new school style tattoo rather than traditional. The traditional tattoo usually has a big line for the contour and small details in the inside, sometimes alternated with a thin line. New school instead usually alternate a strong thick line, black, for the contour and softening in the inside. It is a sort of dynamic line that goes from thick to thin black line, from dark to light color line. This helps the drawing or the main subject to pop up from the background. Now I'm using a 7 round liner to fix on skin the drawing. It is not that big, but it helps me to be quite precise, and in case I need to thicker the line, I prefer to double it when almost finishing my tattoo, instead of regret a too bigger line that I can't erase. When I draw this kind of new school subject, my way to approach is the following. Big or thin dynamic lines for main drawing, and big or thin dynamic lines but different color or midtone values of gray for another subject or for the secondary element. To make sure my customer can manage a long session, I don't trace immediately all the tattoo or step back to side to the areas I already tattooed, because the skin then will be sore and affect the endurance of the customer, because he will feel pain. If the endurance of the customer is long, then you can work easily and quietly on the tattoo instead of making a lot of breaks. This tattoo is divided in 3 sessions of 5 or 6 hours each. I was lucky because the client sat like a rock for long, and I wanted to have a good result, and a good color saturation requires time. Once I was so focused on finishing all the tattoo as fast as I could, but it is not a competition where I get a sort of prize, so I choose to take my time and saturate in a proper way, then the finished result will be really good. Otherwise, if you do it too fast, maybe you can have holes or lack of colors. That is not a good saturation. To place the color under the skin, I use Magnum from 9 soft edge Magnum to 13 or 15 Magnum. And sometimes for black and gray I also use a 23 Magnum. I I can suggest you to pick the right dimension of needles, I mean the diameter of single needle. 0.35 is a good size, and I feel really good with instead 0.30 for gray wash because the result appear soft. Instead, because of the density of the color pigment in a 0.35 diameter, the colors flow more fluid and better because the space between each needle is larger. So if it happened to you once to have problem with filling the skin with colors, this might be one of the possible reasons. Actually, this is just a way and my personal way to work, but it doesn't mean it is the right method. But it could be a starting point for you. I traced the drawing using a 7-liner now, and in the areas where we have shadows like the nose, I tattoo doing a sort of cross-hatching with a pale and mid-tone red color. If I use a darker line in the next session, then I can have problems to cover it with a light or delicate color. For this session, I decided to sign slightly the mask and focus more on the flower. Sometimes my projects are composed by big elements, and there is always a main subject and a secondary subject. So I color first the secondary element because once the skin is open, I might risk to ruin the skin already open with another color and contaminate the brightness, and then have a dull effect on pure colors. For me, it takes time to make a good saturation, so I like to dedicate the right time for me to give to my customer a good result. After different quick color study, I decided to use red and green colors. Then I picked also the analogous colors on the color wheel and different values. The mask is red, so I use for the background a sort of mud green color, because these two colors are actually complementary, red and green. For a quick color study, I use gouache. It is a fast medium because it dries fast, and the color mix is similar to the way I mix ink when I tattoo. This is important to do color study, then at the moment of the tattoo, you can be more focused on what happened on the skin, instead of still thinking what color to use by inventing at the moment. Remember to use the right magnum needle. If you pick a too small size magnum needle, it requires more time, and if at a certain point you have a loss of patience, you can leave some holes. Instead, using a too big needle, if you don't give to the machine the right power, maybe then the needle will just bounce on skin and not pierce in the right way. My first session, and when I finish the flower and I have just signed my Hannya mask and some hair. In this second session, I start with the background. I just signed with a marker, a Sharpie, the borders where my tattoo ends. Probably in future the customer want to add other subjects, so it is better to stop before and have more space to fit with a new other tattoo. To create contrast between the main subject and the background is done using a low chroma green color. That result actually complementary to the red of the mask. If the background was too saturated, then both would have appeared too flat without a good contrast. I keep working to finish an area and to move to another to avoid the skin to be too sore and compromise customer resistance. Main color here are green and red, so I work with saturation to have a good contrast. But there are many different ways to create an interesting contrast, like working with color temperature, giving a darker atmosphere, or using more values. In another video, I want to show you my color approach using values, saturation, color temperature. It actually is not maybe the right way to work, but it's a sort of method that works for me and make easier the color. Actually, it is based on many attempts, so a good advice for you is take your time to the experimentation. You can have a lot of information doing these attempts. Study and make a good practice and learn color theory or how color works. This helps you to give a good three-dimensionality to your work. The leaves are done with the green and red, but at a little bit lower chroma that help mask to maintain the right attention on it. Here the horns are basic violet, but a lower chroma and higher value. My intent is to maintain a focal point on the center of the Hannya mask. The inner of the mouth of the Hannya mask is done with a yellow-green mid-high chroma. Sometimes when I talk to new tattoo artists or new apprentice, they actually ask me often what kind of tools I use. I started using coil machines especially for lining. I think they are powerful, they have a powerful hit than rotary, or better to say, the way I work didn't really help me to use properly a rotary machine for lines. Instead, for colors, I prefer rotary for their softness and helps me to be more elastic using different technique while working. Since last year I bought a rotary machine, actually a Cheyenne pen, maybe one of the most famous pen machine that have been in that moment. But today we have multiple choices for a really good pen machine. For needles, I used to work with Cheyenne cartridge needles, but for many reasons, like the price, I start trying other brands. Actually, this is not the only reason, because obviously I'm not saying that they cost too much, because the quality of their needles or of their Magnum is really good. But I have some problem with the lining needles, so that's why actually I try to choose other brands. I found really different brands that are also more affordable to those who use really a lot of needles for the same session, for the same tattoo. During this video I use AZ cartridge needles, not the white but the transparent one. I tried the white but actually felt a bit uncomfortable with them, but instead the transparent are really good. I also use Quadro needles or Magic Moon cartridge needles that are really good too. I'm not actually sponsored by them, so I am free to tell you my opinion because I'm not influenced. For colors instead I use Intens, that is a really good brand, and I think they have a good spot inside the tattoo industry, and for their quality of pigments and also for their brightness they are really good. But I found the variety of the pale colors instead a little bit limited, so I picked also world famous for different kind of pale and dull colors. For black and gray, I use Pantera, like the Triple X Tribal or Light Sumi, and I tried and recommend you Ralph Nonweiler soft tones because they're really good and helpful for doing the really light soft shadings. In this part, I start the flower, starting from green, red, orange and yellow. The yellow is, I leave it for the last because it's a very delicate, so I want to avoid to contaminate the color by red and green, and that's why I do it for at the end. For the jaw and the mask, my scheme is the following. Main hue is red. For shadow area, I use a red tending to purple with a mid value. Instead, in light area, my red is more brighter, tending to orange or high chroma, adding in some spot a little bit of yellow. Yellow, when related to other colors like red, helps to push a bit more the saturation. Actually, if you try also the yellow with the blue, it can create a nice, brilliant blue-green hue. The blue actually is not in the scene, but makes some tests to discover how nice it is related or mixed to many colors. In many works, it's better to start with a darker value than mid and high value colors. You won't ruin the pureness of some delicate colors. It is also true that filling skin in a good way, because the skin is full of color, it could be a little bit difficult to ruin the pure colors or delicate colors. Then at this point, how to know when skin is good saturated and when I risk to break the skin. Actually it is a personal feeling, but I try to explain as best as I can. Think about a glass you can fill with water. 100% saturation is exactly the water fulfilled to the top. If you exaggerate working on the same area trying to fill the skin, at a certain point it breaks like water pours out. If you fill water at 90%, 80% and 70%, you still have a 10, 20, 30% space to fill the glass to the top before actually the limit, that is 100%. Try to think about this like skin saturation, where 100% is a really good saturation. It is a question of determination. If you want an area fully saturated with a color, think about black color. When you color with the black, your mind and your body goes directly to the point. You fill with a solid black at 100%. Instead, if you want a color shading or gradient, then you saturate a part with one color, then the other part with another one. But the result should not go over the 100%, or you break the skin. It is not easy for those who start, but it's a matter of self-confidence on tattooing. At beginning you don't know the limit because you never experienced a break skin, so you don't have a limit because the loss of knowledge. Only practice helps, but you try to keep in your mind the idea of a glass of water that you can fill with 100% and not over. Highlight, I do it at the end, so if you ruin your pure white contaminating with another color, you might lose the chance to have a good three-dimensional effect. For highlight, I mean a reflection of or pure white, because in a drawing the white makes the difference and it really helps our subject to pop up. Then here we have another bright area like the side of the forehead. If you're not sure to make a good saturation of white, then do it at the end. Close to the end, I feel free to use a line or a shader. This last one, the shader, is a good line but with the soft edges, and I use a darker color rather than a pure black to add more depth. Once I clean the tattoo, I let the blood flow a bit more before the white to have a good result at the end. Here I'm using white color on the inner of the eye, chin, nose and cheekbone, and we'll add the three-dimensionality and roundness on our tattoo like we have on teeth and nose and so on. This video ends here. Thanks for choosing this little tutorial. I know it's a short video, but it is a series of videos I'm going to prepare. I hope you enjoy this kind of format. In case, let me know on my YouTube channel on the comment space, and see you on my next video.